All right, let's dive right into day 18 of our Viking Journey Explainer. We are looking at a genuinely incredible chapter today. It's a day of division, a literal descent deep into the earth, and some profound cultural discovery, all unfolding right in the heart of the magnificent city of Chichen Itza. Picture this. It's the morning of November 27th, 725 AD, and the day kicks off with a really solemn fracture of the Viking crew. After a quick meal, they all gather out in the courtyard for a farewell that's just heavy with emotion. Listen to those culturally powerful blessings Ragnar and Håkon are exchanging here. It's all firm handshakes and gruff goodbyes, but it perfectly highlights the deep brotherhood tying these guys together, right at the exact moment they have to split up. So that brings us to our first major shift, the parting of ways and a brotherhood divided. Exactly 15 men head out with Håkon. They're starting this long, totally grueling overland trek back to Tulum just to get back to their longship. And honestly, as they march out of those gates, their absence leaves a massive, noticeable quiet in the usually rowdy Chichen Itza compound. The familiar, chaotic energy of the full Viking crew is just suddenly gone, leaving this much smaller, much more intimate group behind. Moving on to part 2 with the language license, bridging that cultural divide. Now, we absolutely have to address the elephant in the room before we go any further. How on earth do these two vastly different cultures communicate now that their primary interpreter, Kubalu, is gone? Well, the author makes a brilliant move here, using a literary license to just bypass the language barrier for these final crucial scenes. Instead of bogging the whole story down with the impossible logistics of translating every single word, we get to step into this fantasy format. We're essentially pretending that Ragnar, his crew, and their Mayan hosts suddenly possess a mutual, unspoken understanding of each other's languages. I mean, think about the last time you traveled somewhere and didn't speak a word of the local language. It's totally exhausting, right? Stripping away that friction lets us fully immerse ourselves in the ultimate what-if of this encounter. Sure, it's a deliberate departure from strict realism, but it serves a much bigger purpose. It lets us experience the emotional and intellectual exchange between these two amazing peoples without the constant, grinding headache of a translation barrier. Which leads us right into part 3, into the Underworld, the descent to Balankanche. With that language hurdle completely cleared, Ragnar and his remaining crew, Bjorn, Sven-Loki, Christina, Randveig, Uberik, and Connell, gear up for an extraordinary subterranean adventure. And they aren't just wandering off alone. They're flanked by an elite Mayan escort, led by Balankanche, the king's own military commander. But what's really wild here is the inclusion of Ajik socks. Kings do not send their personal scribes on dirty cave hikes unless it's a top-tier mission. Sending him to document the Vikings' journey is a massive, massive sign of respect. It's a relatively short hike from the bustling city compound out into the thick, humid jungle. You've got insects buzzing, birds calling, the whole 9 yards. But that vibrant, noisy jungle completely vanishes the second they reach their destination. The Balankanche cave system just opens up like a vast, gaping maw right there in the earth. You can almost feel the chill in the air as they step inside. Randveig whispers that it's going to be like a trip into the underworld, and that perfectly nails the eerie, adrenaline-pumping atmosphere. Just imagine Balankanche's torchlight throwing these crazy, dancing shadows over a massive maze of sacred stalactites and stalagmites. And you really have to think about this from their perspective. These guys are seafaring Vikings. Toss them on a stormy, freezing ocean, and they're right at home. But put them deep inside a pitch-black, echoing cave, they are entirely out of their element. Sven-Loki's hushed reaction about being in the belly of a stone beast captures exactly how alien and terrifying this feels to people who are used to open skies. Then you have Christina, sticking close to Ragnar's side in the dim light. Her soft observation that the earth feels like it's breathing grounds this whole epic exploration in a moment of deep human wonder. For them, this isn't just looking at rocks. The earth literally feels ancient, alive, and incredibly heavy with meaning. All right, part 4, the power of glyphs, enlightenment at the scribe school. After they make it back up into the bright afternoon sun for lunch, the whole vibe takes a massive 180. Around 5 p.m., Aji Exox takes them on a detour. We go straight from the pitch-black, earthy silence of the caves into the chaotic, intellectual hustle of an open-air scribe school. It's this vibrant, bustling courtyard packed with people carving stone and painting on bark paper, a total sensory shock. Right in the middle of all this energy, AJ Exox proudly explains the real power behind what they're doing. This intricate hieroglyphic system isn't just decorative artwork, it's the actual memory of their civilization. They use it to obsessively record every vital historical event, every prophecy, and the cycles of the stars. It's essentially the hard drive of the entire Mayan Empire. It is such a wild cultural contrast when you stop and think about it. On one hand, you've got the Vikings, whose whole culture is built on oral traditions, sagas that are spoken aloud, memorized, and kept alive in living memory. On the other hand, the Mayans are completely dedicated to the written word, physically etching their knowledge into history to make absolutely sure it survives. It's this light bulb moment for Ragnar and his crew, realizing just how incredibly advanced their hosts really are. And here is where Ajax Ox drops something truly incredible on Ragnar. The Mayans value the Vikings' arrival so much that they are actively writing them into the grand history of their empire. They want people centuries from now to know about the strangers from the north. The Vikings aren't just tourists passing through anymore. They're becoming a permanent, physical part of Mayan history. Finally, Part 5, Nightfall and New Bonds, Finding a Quiet Contentment. When you look back at how this whole day unfolded, it's just been a roller coaster. From that heavy morning goodbye, down into the literal belly of the earth, back up to the intellectual heights of the scribe school, and finally, out onto an observation platform under the stars. Looking down over the twinkling lights of the city, you can feel the characters finally hitting this deep, peaceful sense of resolution. Up there in the cool night air, Ragnar and Christina share this really beautiful, silent understanding. He pulls her into a warm embrace, and she just leans into it, completely at ease, while the rest of the crew watches with quiet smiles. It's the perfect, deeply human way to close out a day that was just packed to the brim with intense exploration. So I want to leave you with this final thought. As this fractured yet entirely enlightened Viking crew gears up to eventually leave Chichen Itza, taking the scribe age socks and these newly minted written records with them, what exactly is waiting for them as they push further north into the great unknown?